Welcome to episode 280 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today's show is sponsored by Companion Medical, makers of the InPen. InPen is a smart insulin pen that talks to your Dexcom and its own app, giving you the functionality of an insulin pump. It'll keep track of things like insulin on board, the temperature of your insulin, all kinds of cool stuff. You really have to check it out. There are links in your show notes and at juiceboxpodcast.com, but you can always go to companionmedical.com to find out more. All right, we have a treat today. A special guest. I think I remember Billy Gardell first from Bad Santa. I very much enjoyed Billy's work again on My Name is Earl, a television show with Jason Lee from, I think, back in 2007 that I adored. After that, I saw Billy again where we all did, in his hit television show Mike and Molly, where he and Melissa McCarthy played a married couple. More recently, Billy's been on Young Sheldon, and today he is again starring in his own show, Bob Hearts Abishola, which I'll tell you a little bit about later. But first, I'm going to talk to Billy about what it was like to be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Everyone's always talking about the differences between type 1 and type 2 diabetes, but the one thing that's absolutely the same is how it feels to be diagnosed with a disease, have to adjust your life, and come to terms with what's going on. And that's what Billy's here to talk to us about today. Please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan.
Okay, man.
So, Billy, I'm not going to waste time introducing you. I'll do that when you're not on the clock.
Sure, absolutely.
So I have 4 questions. And my first one is this. I had a health scare this year where I had some symptoms that mimicked type 2. And when a doctor just put it in my head, I got home and I couldn't bring myself to eat. And just because of the fear. And I was wondering how that diagnosis initially impacted you.
Well, it was really scary. You know, I've been lucky, my whole life. I've really never had any trouble. And the way I found out mine was the way a lot of people with type 2 find out. A lot of people are walking around undiagnosed. And I had gotten my checkup and my physical, and we did a battery of blood tests, and my A1C came back, I think it was 7.2. Mm-hmm. And so that sent off all the alarms and whistles, and I had the same exact effect, man, because I was like, when I got home, I was scared to eat something. Because once they inform you, what type 2 can do to you, if it's untreated, and if you let it go, it can really cause a lot of damage to your body, and it does scare you into thinking, oh my God, I have to learn how to manage this thing. And in the meantime, you do have a panic about everything you put in your mouth. I had the same exact reaction.
Yeah, mine was really inflamed because my daughter has type 1 diabetes. It's why I have this podcast.
Oh, okay.
I understand the impact of food on blood sugar. And I just stood in my kitchen. I was like, my wife said she doesn't think I ate for a day and a half.
Yeah, I think I about felt the same way, and then I got into this obsessive thing about taking a walk the minute I ate anything. Just trying to burn it so my body would accept food the right way.
See, I'm glad you're talking about it like this because people of note with type 2 don't usually speak really honestly about it, and I think this is what people need to hear. It's just a completely misunderstood thing.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say it. And one of the reasons I joined the My Type 2 transformation program was because I couldn't, if I committed to that, I wasn't able to deny it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So one of the reasons I got on board was not only, one, it's changed everything for me and really improved everything, but the other side of it was if you put a spotlight on it, you can't hide from it. And I figured, if I can do it, maybe other people will see that and they'll try to take care of it too. Because I've been a big guy my whole life. I know how to play the denial game with food. I can still waddle by a mirror and go, I look all right.
Everything's fine if I hold my head like this.
You have to kind of shatter that, and by putting the spotlight on it, I think that's what's helped me start to treat it.
Yeah. Would you call that accountability, or is it just the idea that, I find like even this podcast, which is now 5 years old and has like well over 1 million downloads and is doing something.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. But my point is that when I put it out the first time, I had this idea and I thought, let me just say it out loud so I can't back out of it.
Yeah, that was exactly how I felt, man. I felt the same way when I decided to do this, because I needed to pull the curtain back, so there was no place to hide from it, because I don't think you can change or overcome anything until you first accept it. And I think that kind of helped me accept it.
How long ago did this happen to you? How long ago were you diagnosed?
I want to say it was about 15 months. About 15 months ago, I found out.
It's really new for you then. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know how long my A1C was, out of control before that. That's when I got the blood test back and realized it was 7.2. So I don't know how long I've been walking around with it beforehand, but I got to say, since doing my type 2 transformation stuff, the combination of exercise, diet, and medication, that I feel completely different. Mm-hmm. Like I used to be way more lethargic, and sometimes my vision would be a little bit blurry, and or sometimes you just find yourself falling half asleep midday. Yeah. And so that stuff has gone away, and I'm very grateful for that.
I interviewed Anthony Anderson once, and he spoke about when he was growing up how his father had problems like that, and they just really didn't do anything about it, like something like blurred vision that you would think would stand you up and go, I got to go to a doctor and find out what this is.
Yeah, well, I think your first reaction is just, I must be tired. Mm-hmm. And that's not it. There's something much more heavy going on.
Absolutely. So I guess the next thing I want to understand is, once you're acclimated to the idea, I have type 2 diabetes, what were the first number of steps you took to try to improve things for yourself?
Well, the first step I took was, making a plan with my doctor and deciding which medication was going to be right for me and how to start changing diet and exercise. And then I was through my agent and a friend. They had told me about this program, the My Type 2 Transformation, and we were contacted by them. And once I understood what they were trying to do and researched the program a little bit and found out it was right for me, man, I dived in. And then, I'm a big believer that I'm one of those guys that if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah, I say that all the time.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
If I can try to pull this together, then I think anybody can. And, if you can inspire someone to change something for the better in their life, that's a good thing.
I believe you will. I've seen just what the podcast does for people living with type 1, and I think that one of the first things people need is a sense of community and an idea that somebody else understands what's happening. Like, it's not just happening to you.
Right, and I think opening your mouth and talking about it cuts the fear down, because then you're able to address it.
Well, I'm a huge proponent of what you're doing, because as somebody who's I've been in the diabetes community for so long, what I've seen is, like I said, community helps people with type 1. There's a huge community around type 1, but it's hard to get a type 2 community going. And sometimes I think that's just because people don't want to put the label on themselves that they have type 2 diabetes. Did you think about that before you started?
Man, I'm at a place in my life where I just want to be around as long as I can be here for my son, and as long as I can annoy my wife. So that was motivating enough for me to go, I got to accept that this is real. I think, the things you don't accept are the things that kill you.
Right. And I imagine you don't have to worry about work, because you're like a Chuck Lorre player now at this point. So it's like old time.
I'm blown away, man. I tell you, man, the fact that I'm in another Chuck Lorre show is, one time is hitting the lottery. I don't know what you would call this. I'm starting to feel like that Irish guy who goes out in the woods and gets hit by lightning every time he's out there.
I said to my wife, I was like, Billy's going to come on the podcast. And she's like, oh, he's on Mom. I'm like, no, I think you're thinking of another show. And she goes, no, I think he's on Mom too.
No, they just film right across the street from us.
So then this went through a whole conversation where I'm like, I think you're thinking of the guy from the Three Stooges movie. And she, right? And so we're going back and forth in the living room and having this like conversation. I'm like, Kelly, you're wrong. So we whip it up and we look, and she goes, oh, you're right. And I was like, I knew it. It made me think of, if you ever heard Kevin Smith speak, he's like, everyone always calls me Kevin James. It gave me the same feeling.
Yeah.
Anyway, So I want to understand the web series a little bit. Where can I watch it, first of all, and what's its intent?
You can go to mytype2transformation.com, and it lays out an option for you to have a tool for every part of treating diabetes, type 2 diabetes. There's an exercise program that's specifically designed, and it has 3 levels. There's an easy, intermediate, and hard. You kind of work your way up through that. So you can start anywhere. You don't have to be an athlete to start. You know what I mean? There's simple exercises that get you moving and get you into it. You build your strength, and then you move to the next level. We have a chef on there showing different kinds of diabetes-friendly recipes that actually taste good, because, when you think you got to eat healthy, everybody thinks chicken and broccoli, and then you snap. So this is a bunch of wonderful options on how to cook flavorful, healthy foods that help keep your type 2 diabetes under control. Then there's the medication aspect of it. All the information is on the My Type 2 Transformation website. And then we even had life coaches come in about shifting that thinking, about accepting this thing, and about understanding that this is something, it's a disease that has to be managed, and the acceptance of that. And so showing that journey, I think, like I said, my hopes are that someone will watch it and go, who's thinking, you know what, I'm just going to ignore this. Someone sees me doing it and goes, you know what, if he put himself out there, then I can go investigate this with my physician.
So let's hit on a couple of those things, because food habits are huge, right? Like sometimes you think, you know what I mean? Like you figure, look, type 2, part of it has to be, I'm sure it's genetic, but it's also exercise, and it's food, and it's all that stuff that got you there. So the point is, your brain works one way around food, and then all of a sudden somebody tells you it can't do this anymore. That doesn't mean you just flip a switch, and because you would have done that 30 years ago if that was possible for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I've gotten away with being a big guy my whole life, but you can't outrun a fact, and you can't outrun a number. And the shift in food, I came from a house where it was like, we had a bad day, let's eat. We had a good day, let's eat. Yeah. So, and I'm also from that generation where it was like, finish your plate. There's people starving in other parts of the world. Finish your plate. And that's wiring. You can't undo, 30 years of wiring in 2 weeks. So it's a gradual progression. I still don't do it perfectly, but I'm getting better at it every day because, again, accepting it and dealing with it. And like I said, the thing I like about this program is you can go online and anything you need is there. The tools for cooking, the tools for exercising, information about medication, and then about, the shift in your brain that you have to make, because I have always had an unhealthy relationship with food. I've got, pizza is not a reward, an apple is, and it takes time to learn that when you're a big guy. Yeah. People who've never struggled with their weight don't quite understand that. They just want to tell you, just eat a seaweed chip. Well, it doesn't work that way.
How long did it take you before eating in that way didn't leave you hungry?
I'm still not perfect at it, but I would say probably the better part of a year, okay. And I still mess up once in a while. And again, it's about progress, not perfection. So, I know to get right back on my horse, like whereas before, if I was trying to watch my food and I had a bad meal, well, then I was having a bad meal for 3 months and then finally getting started again. And now I've just kind of learned that if you do mess up, okay, you lose one game, but you maybe win the series. So you get back on it for the rest of the week,
I taught myself, I'm not a lean person, and I taught myself, I use the baked potato fast that Penn Jillette talks about sometimes. I don't know if you've ever
heard. What's that?
So you just eat these baked potatoes, as many as you want. It doesn't matter. And what you learn over the first couple of days, or what I learned, was, first of all, I don't really like baked potatoes. I like butter and salt, right? And the mass of
baked potatoes with nothing on it.
Yeah, nothing. It's terrible. And so you eat it.
I'm Irish, and that doesn't sound good.
Fills you up. And it's got enough nutrients in it. So I do this thing one time, and I lose 15 pounds in like 7 days.
Wow.
It was insane. But I walked away from it thinking, by the third day, you were like, I don't want a potato, and I'm not really that hungry to begin with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it rewired sort of my taste buds. It was really interesting.
I found when I really cut out eating sugar and white flour and stuff like that, like once you get off, it takes a week or two to really adjust to that. But once you get off it and you start to feel better, you don't feel as bloated, you don't feel as swollen or lethargic, and then you realize what that stuff's doing to your body.
Yeah, it's addictive.
And once you have that moment, I think it helps put a little wind in your sails.
No, I agree. How was it, or I guess, how often do you test your blood sugar, and are you considering a continuous glucose monitor?
I do every day, just because I like to see where my number is and make sure that I'm, that's a wonderful thing to be able to check your blood sugar every day, because you can realize, okay, well, what did I eat yesterday that made it go up? Like, and it's funny because everybody's different. Everybody's going to have a different reaction to everything. Like, pasta doesn't really mess with me, but I just stay off of it because I don't want it to trigger another kind of carb. But like, you learn, okay, I can have an apple and not too much happens, but if I have a banana, my numbers go up. So it's a neat way to learn how to track what it is that affects your blood, and that way you can try to keep your numbers consistent.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you, if you ever are interested, there's something called the Dexcom G6. It's a continuous glucose monitor. You'd wear it, and you would see your blood sugar direction and speed constant.
Oh, wow.
It's really cool. You'll see it on your phone.
What's it called?
Dexcom G6. It's a continuous glucose monitor. My daughter wears one. It's how we manage her insulin. It's fantastic.
It's so important, man. And then, like I said, being able to check those numbers every day it's vital. It's like checking your temperature gauge in your car.
Yeah. So I have one last question for you, and then I know you're on a short time frame here. The idea of sharing with your spouse. So I know a person who was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and didn't tell their spouse for a decade. Thought it made him look weak, was embarrassed, this whole kind of thing. And sometimes people want the support of a spouse and sometimes they don't. I was wondering how you're integrating your family into what you're doing.
Well, I immediately told my wife, we've been together 20 years and I've been married 18, so there's nothing we don't talk about, but I can understand that kind of mentality where you think, oh, it's weak. But, what I've found as I've gotten a little bit older is being tough and hiding something that's wrong with you does not make you tough. It makes you suffer. I think that real strength is saying, I need help. I don't know how to do this. Can you help me?
I agree.
And my wife was incredibly responsive. She got rid of everything that tasted good in the house the next day.
Yeah. I said to my wife one day, I was like, I know you think that candy looks nice in that bowl at Christmas time, but could you please not put it in there?
No, if there's a bowl of Hershey's Kisses, you can put a hand chopping machine in front of it. I'm still going in.
Oh. So you and I might be the same person, Billy. I'm just like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I'll take one. And then I'm like, wow, look how small it is.
One. I've never eaten one of anything. It's like when you see on the side of a package of cookies, serving size 3. Yeah. Who eats 3? Yeah. You eat 3 cookies, you don't deserve to have a cookie.
Those cookies aren't meant for you, damn it.
That's right. That's right.
Oh my gosh. If I can take one more second from you.
Sure.
You do have a new TV show. And I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. It's called Hearts Abishola. It's on CBS Monday nights at 8:30, 7:30 Central. And it's a Chuck Lorre show, and it's a very kind show, which I think people are thirsty for these days. And it's a sweet little story about a guy who owns a compression sock factory and a business and has a heart attack because of the stress of his own business. And when he wakes up, there's a nurse there, Abba Shola, and she's of Nigerian descent. He's got this strong, kind presence that Bob is kind of taken by, and he decides in that moment, even though they're very different, that, you know what, I'm just going to see if this woman will give me a chance. And I think it's something we can root for.
Nice. Do you chase after her with the same stuff you bug your wife with? do you use that muscle?
No, I think all the married writers kind of contribute to that. So I think we all kind of have that. It's a collaboration of those writers. The writing is so good on those shows, you don't really have to add anything. You just wait for the scripts to come.
That's really cool. Well, congratulations. It's amazing.
Thank you, man.
I've seen a recent picture of you. You obviously are on the right track. Would you mind sharing with people how much weight have you lost since you were diagnosed?
You know what, man? I haven't been watching the scale, so I know that I've taken a chunk down. I used to be a guy that was on the scale every single day, and I haven't looked in about 7 months.
That's amazing.
And I got to tell you, it's kind of freeing. I'm just looking, and I'm moving better. My clothes are fitting better, and that's what I've been going on. I'm almost at the point now where I'm superstitious to do it.
Look at that. Yeah, I mean, just as a person who just sees you obviously through a screen, it's obvious to me.
Yeah, and I like seeing it that way rather than going, I went up 2, I went down 3, I went up 4, I went down. So I kind of got away from that and just started doing what I was supposed to do and seeing the results, like you said, seeing it on camera or seeing it in the mirror. You're like, okay, all right, that feels better, that looks better. Let me just keep going.
It's a healthy attitude. Would you say your mindset has completely changed around your health in the last year?
I would say it's on its way, yeah, and I'm really glad because I'm a stubborn guy, you know. So it's been nice to have this change happen.
Very cool. Give me the web address one more time for the series.
It's mytype2transformation.com.
Billy, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, my man. Keep doing what you're doing, and my best to your daughter, and I appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was television's Billy Gardell. Billy, by the way, also does a lot of stand-up. You can find out more about his tour schedule at billygardell.com. It's Gardell, billygardell.com. And to find out more about My Type 2 Transformation, just go to mytype2transformation.com. Please remember that the podcast does not exist without the sponsors, and today's episode was sponsored by Companion Medical, makers of the InPen. Those of you using multiple daily injections or just one of those regular old dumb pens, you should upgrade to a smart pen. I think you'll find that InPen is very affordable and will add a level of control to your life that has probably so far eluded you. CompanionMedical.com. Check out the InPen. You know, I have a little music left here, so let me say, I really enjoyed hearing someone's perspective about type 2 diabetes today. I genuinely believe that type 2 does not have a bright enough light shined on it, and that there are so many people living with it or living undiagnosed. The information really needs to get out there. So if you know somebody with type 2 diabetes, share this episode with them. Maybe hearing Billy share so openly about what it's like to have type 2 will help someone else to not be so scared to share, to ask a doctor, to ask a friend or family member for help, something, to reach out, to feel like a sense of community where there maybe isn't one.